Alright, this is part 2 of a tutorial on how to use Studio One. This is aimed at the beginning recording artist that may not know how to play multiple instruments and all that. I'm going to show you, rather than go into how to build chords and all that, I'm going to show you how to use some of the loops in here. Maybe down the road, if there's a need, I can start working on actually creating your own riffs and your own chord progressions and all that. But for now, I'm just going to use a couple of stock ones to illustrate how to get it done and how to do the mixing and all that. So the first thing you do is get into a new song. I've already done that to save time, and I've opened up the loop section here, and I found what I think is a pretty nice sound. You can demo it by double clicking on it. That has a nice sound to it. I think it's a little fast, so what we'll do is we'll just double click here and change this tempo down to about, say, 75. Now let's preview it. Whoops, I accidentally got 400 out of it. Okay, I think 80 is pretty good. So once you've figured out which one of these that you want to use, and you can explore up through those, and you'll find some that kind of appeal to you. Once you've established the one that you want, you just left click it and drag it over and place it on the one. And now you can open up the MIDI window, and you can see here, the edit window, you can see that you've got some MIDI notes here, and if you hover over the note, it will tell you what note it is, the velocity and all that. And if you select the note, you can adjust your parameters here. You can make it louder, a harder strike, harder velocity. You can also grab the lines down here and move these lines up and down. And if you notice inside there's a two-tone here. That tone, that color shifts the balance, so that's an indicator of how strong that note is. So let's create a loop here and listen to this and see how it sounds. So again, from the last lesson, if you take your tool up to the top here, and when it becomes a pencil, you just slide and you create a region. Now we can activate the loop and take a listen. Kind of has a haunting sound. My flute I'm using today is in D. This is an A as the root note. So what I want to do is click and drag and select all of the notes, and I'm going to move that bottom one up to a D. And if you hold your mouse over the piano keys, you can see. So a D is right there. So I'm going to take this bottom one up until it becomes a D. Now I have the same thing in D minor. Okay, so what I want to do now, I'm just going to make a simple two-chord pattern. So this is D minor, so you can, with everything highlighted here, and I'll unhighlight it just so you can hit Control A, or you can just simply drag your mouse across it, left click and drag. Once you've got that, you hit Alt D, and what that does is it makes a copy and puts it in the next available timing. Now we'll zoom out a little bit, and you can see we've got it there. So I want this chord to change to an A, and I won't go into the reasons why. Essentially, A is the fifth chord of a D minor, and that's a pretty common progression, is to go between 1 and 5. There's a lot of progressions, but I'm trying to stay away from music theory today. Now let's take a listen. We should have a two-chord pattern. Okay, so that sounds pretty nice. Now we want to add some drums, so let's go over to the drum loops. Let's see what we get. Well, my mistake. I got into the guitar section. I must have had an eye cramp there. It's pretty early in the morning. Let's see what this is. That's a little strong. Let's go up here. There's a whole lot of these in here. You just got to find the one you like. Get up to, let's close out the bass. There's a nice one. I like that. It's just a good basic drum beat. So let's close the edit window here quickly, and we'll drag this over and put it at 1. Now let's take a listen. Rewind and play. Alright, so that's sounding pretty good. Now you can do the same thing with the drum loops as you do the edit window. You're going to see a little different. This is actually an audio loop. It's not a MIDI loop. It's audio. So you can't really edit and change the beat around, but you can, duplicate it and all that. So for the purposes of what I'm doing here today, this is how to build a song and how to mix it down using the stock tools that are available to you. So let's close the edit window. We got this highlighted. Now the same thing with the MIDI. You can do Alt-D. It will duplicate it and put it in the next available. So there we go. So now we have a full loop. And it's one of the basic building blocks of the song now. Okay, so let's add some bass guitar, and what we want to do is go to the instrument track because I want to build my own pattern, and we'll just pick some kind of a nice sounding bass here. Fingered bass probably is okay. Let's try that. So we'll create an instrument track here, and then we'll drag the bass onto that. And here's the window for the instrument. So it's a fairly nice, clean sounding one. You can increase the overall volume of the instrument. Okay. And there's a lot of parameters here. You can adjust the sounds, but I'm not going to go into the advanced stuff today, just how to set it up. Okay, so we've got it picked. Now we can go in. And we want a 4-bar or 4 measure section. So what I'm going to do is open up the edit window, and now we're going to go to the draw tool or paint tool. You can hover over it and see. Now we're going to take from 5 to 1 and just left click and drag, and that opens up an edit area. We're going to be working with D, so let's find a D note. There's E, there's D right there. So we're going to double click here. That's a little in the high range. Now if you go to the end of the note, you can change how long it is, or you can change where it starts by dragging. If you're trying to avoid sounding mechanical, if you hold down shift as you drag, then it allows you to stop without being snapped to the grid line. So you can customize it and make it sound more human. Now I'm going to lower D. That sounds pretty good. Let's see. Yeah, if you got a 5-string bass, maybe. Well, I'll just pretend we don't have a 5-string bass. So I'm going to put a bass beat on every downbeat of the count of 1. So 1, 2, each one of these lines, each number. 1, 2, 3, 4, and lengthen this out. Okay, now we can start it looping and see what we got. And let's move this loop back to 5 for right now. Here we got it. Let's listen. measures to it. Let's put a little short note in here, and let's see here. Let's just do it this way, just to be doing it. And let's listen to that. Try one each time. Okay, so that didn't sound too bad. Just to recap here, if you hover over it and then touch it, you can move it up and down. If you go to the end, you can change where it ends, how long the note plays, and you can also change where it starts here. And if you hold down Shift, you can bypass the snap to feature and stop anywhere you want to with it. Okay, so we got a basic 4 measures there, and it's playing right along. Now when it shifts to A, what we do is just copy this whole thing, Alt D again to duplicate it, and then now that they're all highlighted, so let's just pull them down to an A, and it's showing A1. Alright, so now let's listen to that. Let's pull this loop out here a little further, and we'll play it and see what it sounds like. Sound too bad, but I think I would like to put a variation in here, and let's listen to that. And let's do the same thing to this one. In this case, we'll drop it the same number of steps down. Let's take a listen. I didn't have it set right on 9. Okay, there's the building blocks. So let's duplicate the bass line one more time. Alt D. And if you notice, it starts right on the 9. And let's zoom out so we can see this. And let's do it again. And one more time. Okay, now let's do the same thing for the piano. We'll select everything. We'll do Alt D again and one more time. Now let's take a look where our drums are. Let's close this window and zoom out so we can see where the drums end. They aren't quite enough there, so we will highlight the drum track, and maybe, oops, I just did something. I don't know what I did there. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, so let's just do Alt D, and it puts it at the end. You can see that. And we'll just keep adding it out until it gets to the same length as the song. There we go. Now we can play the whole song if we want to. There we go. So let's get out near the end. Okay, so we got a backing track. Now we'll add an audio track, and we'll call it flute, which is already named. And let's see if we can rearrange that. We can. There we go. Just click and drag it down. So we got piano and bass and drums, and then now we're going to record a flute. So I'm going to turn off looping just because I don't want it on there. I'm going to let it play for a little bit before I actually start playing the flute. Kind of go through a cycle, and then I'll play a flute line with it. I'll just make something up as we go. Here we go. So arm it from the last lesson if you remember, and then start it playing. Here we go. Whoops, I just hit the wrong button here. Alright, so now we can play that back and see what it sounds like. I think I'll normalize it before we get too far along so it's plenty loud. Here we go. There's some errors in there. Okay, so we got a basic song built. Now the flute's kind of buried in the music, so what we need to do is mix. And I'm not gonna get into the fine points of mixing. I'm just gonna illustrate how you do it. So what I like to do is I start with the bass and with the drums. So I'm gonna turn the flute all the way down, or actually I'm just gonna mute it. And we'll mute. Now let's see here, this one and this one I believe. Let's see what we got playing. Alright. See, now we're driving it pretty hard here. It's peaking, so which one's peaking? We gotta figure that out. It was the drums. So let's turn the bass down. Bring the drums up till they sound good without peaking. Okay, so in Studio One, if you go above the 0, you're gonna clip. So get it up close, but not above. I like to have the bass guitar at about the same level as the kick drum, so I'm going to bring the bass up. Get back to the front. Okay, let's see if we can bring in the keyboards now. We want the rhythm to establish the feel of the song, but we don't want it to be a dominant sound, so we just bring it up till it establishes the mood of the song. So that doesn't sound too bad. Now let's bring in the actual live instrument, and we'll start it low and we'll bring it up till you can hear it good. There's a rule of thumb you follow a little bit if you were wondering about how loud is it too loud. The rule is 4 decibels. If you hear it and it sounds like it's possibly too loud, you lower it down to where it's 4 decibels less, and that's what these meters are all about. At 4 decibels less, if you can still hear it well, then it was too loud. And you can keep doing the 4 decibel till you can't hear it good enough. I just use my ear and I start low and come up till I can hear it without having to worry about it. So here we go. So that doesn't sound too bad. I can hear it clearly. I can hear all of the instrumentation. It's got a nice blend to it. And I'm not saying this is perfect. I'm saying this is good enough for the tutorial. So that's kind of how you set your levels. I think this needs a little EQ, so I'm going to open up the insert effects and sends and add the channel strip and EQ that flute a little bit, and I want to loop where I can actually just keep listening to the flute. And here we go. We're going to set it to loop and just adjust the flute. Now I'm going to add a little reverb, so I'm going to go right click and add an effects channel and insert a reverb strip, so that's mixed verb, and we will make sure we have a send from the flute track, so we'll add that now for effects 1. And if you don't know how I'm doing this, I did a part 1. You can check that out and learn the rudiments of setting up the inserts. Now I'm going to lower this all the way down, loop it, and bring it in until I hear some good reverb. And I like to have a lot of reverb with a fair amount of dampening on it. So this is kind of almost already there. And again, you can use the presets if you want. So here we go. Okay, I like that. I don't think I really want any echo on this particular song. So all we need to do now is set these out here to the, you want to go to the beginning of the song, and then you want to have enough at the end to allow for it to actually reverb to die down so that it's dead silence before the song actually stops. And its tutorials get kind of lengthy, so I'm going to avoid doing the whole process, but I would normally play this all the way through and make sure that it's not clipping and all of that. So just for the heck of it, I just want to listen to some of the song, make sure I'm happy with it. Whoops, I went too far. Here we go. See if I can figure out where that clipping is. Okay, so I'm happy with that. It's not clipping. It gets dangerously close, so I'm going to back it up just a little bit. And then now that I've got my range selected, I go to Song, Export, Mix Down, determine where it's going to go. Let's put it on the desktop. Here we go. And I'll call this one Song 2. Format is 16 and 44, which is the CD specifications, and it's a WAV format. Between the loops here, so we're good there. And all I have to do is hit OK, and it'll mix the song down, assuming there was not any clipping. If there's a clip anywhere, it'll give me an error message. Otherwise, it'll be just fine. This is telling me that there is some clipping, so I would need to go back through and eliminate that clipping. I'm just going to not do it again just for the sake of the timing here, but I'd go back through and adjust my levels, maybe take the master down a little more until it doesn't clip. So we've gone from adding loops and extending them out, changing the key of a section or the chord that's playing, kind of the basics of how you build a song, just a 2-chord progression. As you get more advanced, you can learn how to change from a major to a minor to a 7th to a 9th to an augmented. You can learn those things and adjust your chords. You can build them yourself, or you can use something from the loop library. It's just whatever a person wants to do. I play all the instruments, so I just do it myself. But if you don't play all the instruments, these loops can be pretty helpful. So if you have questions, private message me on Facebook or send me an email. Just get word to me what your question is. I'll be happy to try and answer it. Thanks for watching, and I hope this is useful.